find the North Star and stick to it. And it just makes everything so much easier. Maybe one of the problems we're having in the world with like xenophobia or just anger generally is like fear. Maybe people are just afraid. They're not happy where they are. They don't know how to get out. They don't know how to do what they want. There's not a lot of support. Well, the number one goal is truly helping people find like the joy in their heart and like the perfect job for them. It's just so important for me to have a good relationship and really love whoever my boss is or the people I work with. If I had someone I could work with who I really loved and I feel like I was learning, I would do any job.
Yeah.
They have had zero management training.
Yeah.
Zero personal assessments. And then the coach who ran it was so clever. And then by the end, they were saying how, like on the key cards, they were going to put their descriptor on it. So people knew how to tell them what they needed to make a decision. And that's the whole thing with this business is there's so many ways it can go, right? Because it can be training, it can be coaching, it can be any kind of skill. And that's what I love about it. It's almost a bit of a joke, but it's a little more like having a child. I just doing the best I can to help it grow and get better. And it's a really fun problem always.
Every leader has a story to tell, and the Safe Leader podcast uncovers the diversity story behind leading figures championing change to make our world a better place. Join me, your host, Mark McBride-Wright, as we hear from business leaders, academics, entrepreneurs, and agents of change as they share their journeys of innovation, resilience, and transformation. Together, we explore how they embrace the principles of safe leadership, sharing, acting, feeling, and empowering to create safer, more inclusive environments for everyone. Hello, welcome to the next episode of the Safe Leader podcast. I'm your host, Mark McBride-Wright, and I'm delighted to be joined by Francie Jain, who is the founder and CEO of Terawatt, a platform that helps healthcare organizations reduce employee turnover by scaling psychological safety and professional development through group coaching. With a background in finance, capital strategy, and entrepreneurship, Francie brings a systems-level perspective to solving one of healthcare's biggest challenges, retaining and empowering frontline talent. Before launching Terawatt, Francie founded Next Chapter, a re-entry support community for stay-at-home parents, veterans, and manufacturing workers, and previously held senior leadership roles at Lazard, Fortress Investment Group, and Light Street Capital. Her unique path from Wall Street to wellness gives her a rare lens into how inclusion, culture, and leadership intersect with financial performance. Through Terawatt, she's pioneering a scalable, human-centered approach to well-being and retention in the most demanding work environments. Francie believes that when people are supported to thrive, organizations thrive too. Francie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mark. I'm delighted to be here. What a beautiful introduction. Thank you. That was so lovely.
Well, you've got an incredible arc to your professional experience, and there's so many things there that I want to dig into and turn over and get your perspective on and understanding what led you to do what you did there, and mainly because there's similarities to work I've done back in the United Kingdom. So, really interested to get into that. But before we go there, let's go back and find out a bit about the young Francie. Are you doing today what you thought you would be doing back then? Tell us a bit about your younger self and who you wanted to be, what you wanted to become.
Yeah. That's always such a funny question because the best is when you ask kids what they want to do when they grow up.
Yeah.
And then you remember that, for like 20, 30, 40 years later. I remember very distinctly telling people I either wanted to be a jockey, a horse jockey, or a beautician.
Okay.
Those are my two ones. And that was really just because I probably didn't know how to put on makeup and I thought that was interesting to learn. And then I liked horseback riding. I didn't realize there was a career besides being a jockey.
Yeah. Well,
on a racehorse, which is one of the most dangerous careers you could probably have. So I'm really glad I did not do that.
Working with horses, I did a podcast once where I was a guest. It was called the New Masculine podcast by uh, Tavistock,
Mm.
and his work is all about equine
Mm.
coaching. Sort of doing work with horses, um, to also then connect with your inner self and what have
Okay,
you. Because
lovely.
there's
Yeah.
like an effect that horses have on people where they bring out things in people. I don't know. I haven't actually done that. I just did the podcast, um, for people that have a love of horses, I can see that being something. I guess it's like any sort of pet that you might have.
Yeah.
An assistance pet or an emotional support animal.
You know what's funny is I think the reason people respond is because they don't speak. It's
Yeah.
like the same as dogs and cats. Like you kind of have to be, and you have to sort of like imagine what they're saying and not be kind of like, shut up, you know? And they're not actually saying anything to you that would actually drive you crazy. They're just sort of like,
So you ruled out that you didn't want to be a beautician or a jockey or somewhere on your
right.
the years as life evolved, you realized they weren't pathways you were going to go down. So tell us a bit about what you did end up doing that's brought you to where
Mm.
you're at now.
I'll tell you, I've always had so much trouble figuring out professional stuff because I always had this like, I think I've always had really competition between like the intellectual and like the
Okay.
heart.
Right.
And I always would come up with like when I came out of college, I was thinking, oh, I really want to do like the business of art. So either work in a gallery or work in fashion. And um, it was actually too bad. It's actually really too bad I didn't do the gallery route because that's something I still actually really love is like art and being around art and speaking to artists and stuff. But I was afraid of the sales side.
Right. What trying to sell pieces
Yeah.
and yeah,
But it
yeah.
turns out like that's like a strength of mine is relationship building. And it just like I don't know, like I wasn't knowledgeable enough about and I didn't I don't know, everyone in my life was like a doctor, not even a doctor, like lawyers and you know what I mean, sort of business people. So there wasn't more like executives, I guess. But there wasn't really a sense of like what is sales. I didn't really even understand it. So it seemed very scary. But I ended up going and working in fashion and but I didn't understand also like that it was worthwhile to spend more time just thinking about the culture of a place as opposed to just like getting a job and thinking that that would be good for me. I mean, the reason that all came up is because in college I was my major was political science,
Okay.
but I had like a minor in visual arts.
Yeah.
And those were like my happiest semesters is when I had each of those classes. And I thought, okay, that will be great. And that, this is like the story of my life. Like me coming up with some idea that seems like a great solution, and then it like gets met with reality.
Right.
And it doesn't work the way my brain tells me it should work. So there's just a lot of that in my life. But so, and then part of the other like trend in my life is that because I guess I don't know, so intellectually imaginative about jobs, I also have switched careers many times.
Okay.
And that doesn't scare me. And that's sort of how that got me to where I am now ultimately, is I realized that the ability to sort of like, optimistically change jobs and figure out a path and figure out careers was kind of a superpower. And not everyone has that. And for a lot of people, it's very scary.
Yes.
And that's like shocking to me because like it's really just not that hard. You just like talk to a lot of people. And I guess again, my other superpower is like making relationships.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and so that makes sense. All that makes sense. But it's so funny. And so that was kind of how next chapter came about, is that I was really realizing that, maybe one of the problems we're having in the world with like xenophobia or just anger generally is
Yes.
like fear. Maybe people are just afraid. They're not happy where they are. They don't know how to get out. They don't know how to do what they want. There's not a lot of support. And so that was sort of the epiphany that kind of got me looking into this and saying like, that's just not right. Like if we believe we're all capital, we all live in a capitalist society, and I believe in capitalism. I went to University of Chicago, which is like, we worship at the altar of numbers and data. And but I still like have a heart, and I do like there's nothing better than spending time with someone who loves what they do, like, or loves their family or loves their dog. That feeling, like, is a wonderful thing to be
And
around.
they shouldn't have to be in conflict with one another. Like
Agreed.
your statement there reminds me of the model from Erin Weed, who is the founder of the Dig, and it was a transformative process that I did personally that really made me learn more about myself. And her model is about the head, the heart, and the core, like your gut. What's your
Mm.
gut telling you? And sometimes you can be getting different signals from each of these sources. Um, the concept of like almost intuitive coaching, like going with your gut, like what you feel. And whenever there's a lack of alignment between them, can be when might feel ill at ease or slightly stressed or unsure about a direction that we want to go in. And as humans, we don't like that often. We don't like not feeling like we're structured and ordered. And so I'm interested in finding out more about next chapter specifically. And you listed the communities that you worked with there as stay-at-home parents, veterans, manufacturing workers. So I'm guessing that's people who were on the shop floor, on the production lines. Yeah, tell us more about, because I'm an engineer by background, and the safe leader is all about um, high hazard industries and and I run an organization in the UK about helping get underrepresented groups into the engineering profession. So these communities, as well as broader diversity communities like more women, more LGBTQ, more Black people, etc., into the industry is what I've spent a portion of my time trying to enable. So when I saw that you've ran an organization that's tapped into similar mindsets, yeah, I'd love to hear more about the next chapter journey.
Yeah, yeah. So again, like, not surprisingly, like, I'm just so driven by like relationships and stuff, and developing relationships, keeping relationships. So what I it was so random, but I was watching a U.S. presidential debate between like Hillary Clinton, and Donald Trump, and there was a kerfuffle about, I've done more for the manufacturing workers who've lost their jobs. And someone threw out a number like 5 million or 10 million workers have lost their jobs since 2000. And I was like, hold on a minute. That is a lot of people. And is that true? Is that a real number? And so I took a bunch of time just like pausing just to try to research just how many people in America are losing manufacturing jobs, and why, and all those different things. And so, like, what I found is, and actually, just recently, I found another chart. So here's the actual answer. The peak of U.S. manufacturing was in 1940s,
Right.
and since then, it's been coming down, like
Okay.
almost like 45 degrees line.
Right. Right. Right.
So you can look at really any time series, and
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of people who've lost their jobs.
Interesting.
And so, what I was thinking about was this, like, like, lead up just the past 15, 10 years. And wow, that's a lot of people. And there had been a lot of news at the time about, let's say there's like a manufacturer in the States called Carrier, and they make air conditioners and maybe heating also. But they say they're talking about having their manufacturing plant moved to Mexico. And it was a big to do in the news, and everyone was talking about it. And I was thinking through the logistics. And it was in the middle of like Indiana, which is, there's one big city there, Indianapolis, but otherwise there's a lot of small towns.
Yeah.
So that production facility was going to leave. Then you have thousands of people, I would assume, work at
Yeah.
that
Oh,
plant.
oh, job. Yeah. Yeah. Where would they go?
And
What would they do?
yeah, and then, like, if you then think about, well, most of, people are buying more like the Korean or other like foreign made
Hmm.
air conditioning units because they're more affordable. Well, then where do those people work? Like, with that specific knowledge, where do they go? And then I was thinking, okay, well, if you are a manufacturing worker, you probably haven't gone to college, university.
Yep.
At universities, they have career services, so they help you. And let's say you've been laid off, or maybe you're trying to find a job. But if you've just completed high school, I don't know of any high school that has career services.
Not for alumni
Yeah,
either,
right, exactly. And
when
not
you're out
even right, not
of
even current.
yeah,
Exactly. Like 20
yeah,
years ago, you graduated from there.
yeah,
They're like not helping you.
yeah,
So then I was thinking like, wow, so there's really not much out there. And I thought, oh, well, you know what? Actually, I was like, I bet there's like a Yahoo for career change or something. So I was thinking like, I bet this is really scary because like who's helping these people? And I was looking into I think there is an industry, and I still can't really find it, but of organizations when there's a mass layoff, I think they help people. There's something in there, but it's very hard to find. It's like you have to know the right words and stuff. But I was thinking like there must be like a Yahoo of career change. Like who's like doing the cheap thing where it helps people? And it's just like it may not be great, but it's good enough.
good enough basics.
And yeah, it's like inexpensive or free or whatever. And I couldn't find that. And I just was like, this is crazy. Because usually when I have those ideas, there'll be 1,000 or 10,000 of
Yeah,
these websites. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, how am I the only person to have this question? And then I started to get really obsessed with it. And I wrote an email to my cousin who's like an ed tech entrepreneur. And he said, "Well, let's talk about it and let's see if you can, make a business out of it." Or he'd also gone to business school, so everything was like a business. We all were like, "How
yeah,
do we make a business?" Um, and so what I realized is, as I was doing it, I was thinking, okay, well, it would have to. Well, the number one goal was truly helping people find like the joy in their heart and like the perfect job for them. Like, so that
yes,
was like the whole goal. And so we weren't going to make money on their backs, meaning like I didn't want it to be like, advertising where they're the product, or I didn't want it to be like a headhunter where we're actually working for the employer, or a conference where we're just making money out of getting people in the door.
yeah,
All those things. I wanted to just really be about helping the people like find the next great thing for them and like what really fits. And so my idea was like it'd be a community, it'd be like kumbaya, and we'd like help each other out. And
yeah. Peer to peer support type thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
right. And like the one thing I kept wanting to do, and this is how it evolved into Terawatt, but what I really wanted to do was have like personal assessments where you could take either these kind of basic ones and they would tell you like 5 careers that might be good for you, or like a Myers-Briggs, or more sort of intellectual ones.
yeah,
So when I was in business school, I took a Myers-Briggs test, which is like a personality assessment, and they give you the 4 letters.
yeah.
And that was the first time I'd ever had anything like that. And it was like a huge light bulb moment because the first 3 were kind of negligible. I was like a little bit of a feeler.
Right.
But actually, the funny part about that was that happened in business school, right? And because I was at University of Chicago, which is all like numbers
Yeah,
people, like I went there to become like good at numbers, and and they were all like, "Oh, you're the only feeler in the room. Come
yeah,
speak to us about what that's like." And it was hysterical.
yeah,
Everyone's like, "What are you? These decisions you're making are crazy." And I'm like, "Well, that's my I'm a feeler." So, but it was like small. But the big surprise to me was that I was an off the charts extrovert.
right.
Either be an
Okay.
introvert or an extrovert, or
Yeah,
even
yeah,
to
yeah,
be flexible. But I was like, it was a completely inflexible. It was 100% extrovert,
yeah.
and apparently I'd answered every question with the extrovert
Right. Trait. Yeah,
sign, the trait, yeah. And that was shocking to me because I'm not a person who like rolls into parties or into stores full of people I don't know and like shake people's hands and introduce myself and start chatting with people. I can be very shy, many times. And so, but really what it meant was that my interpretation was that I really cared about relationships.
yes. Yeah.
Relationships drove me,
They give
that's
you energy. They give
yeah, it
you
gives me
energy.
energy. And it's like, or like one of the things was, I think what I really realized then too is it's just so important for me to have a good relationship and really love whoever my boss is or the people I work with. Like
Yeah,
that was like a big epiphany too. Like, oh wow, well, if I had someone I could work with who I really loved and I feel like I was learning, I would do any job.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that was a huge epiphany because here I had been before saying, well, I need to do this and do this, and it was this intellectual like, creation.
yeah,
And so that was really helpful. And so I thought, wow, well, what if we give everyone that? There's some way to make it affordable where they can have these kinds of assessments, and then that will help them like shine a light bulb into like who they are and what would be a good way to go forward. Um, and so I was sort of investigating different kinds of assessments and figuring out how to make it work. And I was getting really bogged down by just the content of it and having to start from scratch.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, this is so hard. And by the way, like I'm not like any kind of like coaching influencer. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just a person that thinks it's a good idea. And so let me just add one more thing. So the manufacturing workers were just from this idea. That's how it all got started. And then I was thinking, who are other groups that are also in career transitions or at forks in the road? And can I quantify those? And so one was people decommissioning from the military. And so in America, it's very easy to find this number. Every year, 250,000 people leave the US military and become civilians. And I remember also driving around and hearing President Obama saying on the radio, hire our vets. They're very well trained. And I remember thinking, what is happening? Like, why is the president talking about hiring vets? And I think it's because you have these people that it's a big group of people that are coming out into the workforce and people are having trouble figuring out where their skills fit in.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I don't, you know what I mean? And there must have been some like unemployment problems with that population. And so at that time when I heard those ads, and then the other one is because I'm a woman and I had a kid, and she was in preschool. I always had one leg in with the stay-at-home moms and one leg in with the working
Yeah.
moms.
Yeah.
And at the one point, like all these stay-at-home moms were like sidling up to me and saying, "Hey, Francie, I'm thinking of going back to work." And I was like, "What is in the water? Like, what is happening? Why is this?" And then I did all this research, and so there's like a psychological component, I think, which is that like as women have more time, if you're a stay-at-home mom and you're staying home with your kids, once your kids are at full-time school, you have a lot more structure to their lives and your life, but also ability to like think about yourself and like what I want to do. And then the numbers were really interesting. I found these great numbers from actually it was like the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, like the
Yeah.
BLS.
Yeah.
And you had to do a little bit of math, but basically it showed that every year 4 million American women go back to work full time and part time when their youngest kid enters full time school. So some places that's kindergarten, some places that's first grade, but meaning to like 3 p.m. or 4 p.m., whatever the thing is. And I was like, wow, that's a crazy number. No one's talking about that. And it made sense to me just anecdotally because I was seeing that.
Yeah. You were in that pool. You were round these.
Yeah, and it was like it made so much sense because the kids are trying to go to school and the moms are trying to realize like, wow, like I have a lot of time now. Like it's not like I run out and do an errand and the kids at school. Like I have like hours and hours and hours. And so I actually even called the Bureau of Labor Statistics to say like, am I doing the math right? Is this what the numbers are really saying? And they
Wow.
called me, yeah, and they called me back. It was so cute. Yeah, they called me back and they're like, yeah, you're right. And I said, well, is there any more data on that? And they said, no, that's really all we have. And I said, do you have anything more, like anything more I can go on? And they said, oh, well, the one thing I can say is we think it's related to childcare. And I said, well, okay, thanks. I knew that. But yeah, so it's related to childcare. So at least the government is telling us that. But basically that it's cheaper. Depending on how much a person makes,
Yes.
you're better off just staying home for those years
Yes.
than getting childcare and figuring out the logistics of that.
Yeah.
And but then again, as a feeler, I would say, well, if you love your job, it's worth it because you're reserving
Yeah.
your place in the workforce.
Yeah.
The coming in and out is a problem. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so those are the three groups. And I was like, and it wasn't really taking off, but I had this like great website and I was so like into it. Like I was really like so compelled and like just could not stop thinking about it.
Absolutely.
And I thought, well, you know what these people really need? As I was speaking with these moms, I was like, but they really need is a coach because I don't know the content. Like I can't really help them. And for a moment I thought, well, should I become a coach? Maybe that's the answer. And then I thought, no, no, I don't want to be a coach. I want to just build the scaffolding.
Yes.
I want
Yeah.
to do it like in mass,
Yeah.
like in scale.
Yeah.
And and so I thought, okay, fine. So that's the answer. And so I reached out to a coach I knew and I said, listen, like, what if we got like 10 moms? And this was like 2017, 18. It was before the pandemic. And people were using Zoom, but not like aggressively.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said to the coach, well, listen, what if we got like 10 stay-at-home moms and they could just, you could have something at night, like kids would be in bed or whatever, like they wouldn't have to go anywhere, no babysitting. And like they would split your rate, you tell me your rate,
Yeah.
so they pay 1/10 and you don't have to find customers. It's like
Yeah.
I'm helping you with customers.
Yeah.
And the woman I mentioned it to said, oh, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, epiphany. Like I forget like coaches need leads. Like coaches
Yeah.
need customers
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, this whole thing can just be a marketplace
Yeah.
where I connect coaches to people and I make it affordable.
Listen.
And then like coaches just tell me what they want to get paid as opposed to me telling them what
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
paid. And it's funny because that's what most coaching companies are, is it's mostly one-on-one
Yeah.
and they pay the coaches as little as possible
Yeah.
so that it seems more affordable to the buyer. Or there's a coaching company where they have their own content, and again, they just pay people to train, like to just deliver it, and they pay them as little as possible.
Yeah.
And they make the spread.
Yeah.
And so apparently my thing was like very different in that
You're
I'm saying
help
like,
led. Yeah.
yeah,
You're.
more like Airbnb. So I was,
Yeah.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's what I always say to people. It's like Airbnb because, the coaches tell me what their rate is, and then the buyer can decide if they want to pay for their expertise or not. And everyone has a choice. And again, that's another thing I learned, like as a parent of a toddler, it turns out like humans like choices.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
turns out life's a lot easier with toddlers when you give them a choice. And and it's true for adults too. And so anyway, that's how it all started. And so a little bit the sad part about it is that we're now B2B because that's who has the budget
Yeah.
for professional development. But like one day, like I'm very ambitious for this company, and like
Yeah.
one day I do want to get back to like individuals, and we can probably do groups of individuals, like for, like it could be newly invented civilians,
Yeah.
or manufacturing workers across America or whatever, right? Where they're all have some kind of cohort where they're working on. But
Those numbers haven't changed, or how have those numbers
no, they
changed with
haven't.
the new administration and the new strategy of, I mean, it's too early still to know what impact bringing manufacturing back to America is going to have. But do you, I mean, you, yeah, I mean, maybe a market will be opening up for you to like um, help scaffold the skills in the
Oh, that's a
American.
great idea. Yeah, I love that. And that's the whole thing with this business is like there's so many ways it can go, right? Because it can be training, it can be coaching, it can be any kind of skill,
Yeah.
right? And so there's so many ways you can do it. And that's what I love about it is that really it has so many different iterations it could
Yeah.
be.
So are you, so when you say you're B2B now, are you you're going directly to companies, working with companies to help do group coaching or one-to-one coaching for their employees? Is that
Yeah. So the sort of like what I want to be doing is really just bringing affordable expertise to employers, to their employees. And so what I always say is it's like helping the sophisticated middle
okay?
so that these are people that really don't have much professional development. Maybe they have a budget for conferences, but
Yeah.
conferences pretty much are sitting on your butt and
Yeah.
listening to people talk on a stage.
Yes.
They're not very interactive and they're not that interested in the ROI
Yeah.
for the buyer. They are interested, like I said, on just getting people in the door. And you see that. And like I've done conferences so many different ways. Like we got a booth one place, we've spoken on panels, and I try to make it as interactive as possible, but I often do wonder like, is that just because there's nothing else?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that where people are
Yeah.
going? But anyway, so let's just say those people, this middle group has a budget for a conference. It's probably somewhere between $2,000 to $10,000 a year. For that money per person, like if you took money from those 10, let's say 10 people like that, you could get an incredible coach for 6 months of
Yeah.
group coaching.
Yeah.
And you could come up with things that you wanted to tackle, like, negotiation, psychological safety, being a better manager,
Yeah.
becoming a manager. I mean, you could do anything because one of the things that I've learned from all these coaches, we have almost like 100. And in the end, it's really about the human brain.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not so much about the specialty of what the person does. It's about how to like connect to other humans and how to learn how to have behavior that elicits the best from others and creates connections and helps people sort of like solve for the North Star, not
Mm.
for like the ego. And that's just, but, and like you can take that and that's basically what everyone's talking about, but they all have really different ways to like do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's so cool.
So
And
is
so,
that what? So
yeah.
that's what you've built with Terawatt is almost like a coaching marketplace where the coaches can put up their rates, as you say, their specialities, their expertise, um, and then is it the employers that have the budget for X number of employees that will then book a number of slots, or they'll devolve out this choice opportunity to their employees to then come onto the platform and then choose a coaching program or something.
Yeah, so the one thing that's tricky about Terawatt is that because it's like we're selling services
Yes.
and we're a marketplace, it's a
Yeah.
little bit hard for people to like wrap their arms
Right.
around. Um, but what I like to do is talk to an employer. It's usually like an L&D person or speaking to one library. It's like the head of the library. It can be any kind of person who's sort of like in charge of some sort of budget and say, okay, well, what problem are you looking to attack? Like,
Yeah.
what are you trying to solve for, or what are you trying to improve? And because ultimately, we're not saying like throw coaching in there and make your life better, gross national happiness. We're saying like, how can we come up with things that then we can measure,
Yes.
and then see how it worked and have the feedback and know that like, okay, do we want to make it better or do we want to stop? Or like, did it work? Is it good enough? Could it go, could we try to could we expand that? I have like, what happens after the experiment? Like
Yeah.
let's do an experiment and then like,
Like
how do we
a
evolve?
tailored solution per prospect, per account that you're working with, where there'll be some, as you say, service selling. So you're tailoring, and then the group coaching programs might be part of the solution, or they might not, and there might be some other ideas that you come up with. And is the idea or the ambition then to get to circle back and tap into those three groups you had originally, the stay-at-home
Oh yeah.
parents, the veterans, the manufacturing workers?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, and really, like even now, someone came to me and said, "Listen, we've got a group of 10 people we'd like to talk to," I would do that in a heartbeat. It's more just the marketing of it.
Yeah.
So, one thing that's funny about these startups that is something I like learned recently in the past few years is like you almost have to pick a kind of like a niche to
Yes.
start. And because I was saying, oh, because we were getting clients just from kind of word of mouth and somewhat casually. And people were saying, well, who are your clients? And I would say, oh, it's just like knowledge workers. But really, if we're going to like go after people and sell to them, we have to be a lot more specific because
Yeah.
that's like the whole world. Not, you know what I mean? It's not the whole world. It's a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so initially I was like, well, maybe tech, but then here's the thing, like, yes, we have a lot of clients who are tech, but that's a very competitive like marketplace.
Yes.
And so what I figured, so we had a one client who was a hospital, and we had this incredible experience with them and realized that here you have very educated people,
Yes.
have incredible expertise. Their organization manages to metrics. They measure everything. They care about everything. And they have had zero management training. They've
Yeah. Yeah.
had
Yeah.
zero personal assessments. And so what I keep thinking is, wow, this is we can really help them. It's a huge opportunity for us. It's a huge opportunity for them. And it's like the perfect client because we can really, there are all these metrics they're already measuring.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we can just see, how it changes after 6 months, or maybe we can compare two teams because you might have like like orthopedic group versus like the neuro group or whatever. I mean, you have these like distinct groups that you can compare as like a baseline survey. So like one group could get coaching, training, whatever, the other group could not, and then you start to compare like what's happening with like voluntary turnover, people quitting, or what's happening with sick days, or, all
Yeah.
sorts of things, promotions, all sorts of stuff. And, or even on the operational level, like maybe you can talk about like even infections of their patients. Like, can you compare that? Like things like that. And so the more I sort of thought about it, I was like, I don't really have a background in, I mean, I have a zero background in medicine, but it just feels like we can really help these
Yeah.
organizations. And it also includes like, let's say pharma or like home health care, senior living. And it's
Yes.
kind of a it's several verticals ultimately. But I think it's really this idea of, I call it like people have like the engineering brain. It's like the science brain. There's like a right way and a wrong way to do it. The problem is with humans, it's much more gray area.
Yeah.
And those skills, those muscles haven't really been developed. And like for instance, when we did this one thing with this hospital, we gave them a personal, a personality survey called Independent Leadership Skills. I think is ILS,
Yeah.
and it like blew their minds.
Right. They had because they'd never done it
No
before.
one had ever done it. And then the coach who ran it was so clever. She like separated people into groups of like the four or five, whatever the different groups are, so they could talk about what they had in common. And then like they like presented to other people,
Yeah.
and you were like happy and they were like laughing and smiling. And I think that they were starting to realize like, oh, this is why I have trouble
Relating to
getting this
another.
person to do what I want them to do
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever. And then by the end they were saying how, like on the key cards, they were going to put their descriptor on it so
Yeah.
people knew how to tell them what they needed to make a decision.
Yeah.
And it was like so cool. And so I just was realizing like, wow, like, what I had in business school really should be taught in all colleges, high schools, graduate schools. So you just have a little more sense of like yourself. And then when you know yourself a little bit better, you're just a little bit more self-aware of how people are different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you just start to be a little bit more flexible about how you can like bridge the gap and not have anger or stuff like that.
I always find with these tools, because I've done a few as well, and I did the Myers-Briggs and I was on ESTJ,
Oh, yeah.
and I was similar experience actually, full on extrovert. The teacher even got us to line up in order of our scores on that EI
That's
domain,
fun.
and I was one side, and my colleague who was the other graduate that had been employed in the team that I worked in, he was the other side of introvert. Like we were literally the bookends of the 20 people in the training course. It was so funny to see. But they and we did another, I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically a red, green, blue triangle.
Oh.
And you had to answer two surveys, and one gave you your MVS, your motivational value score, and another one gave you your stress based value score.
Mm.
And so when you had 1 point on the triangular graph for when you're motivated and 1 point for when you're stressed. And obviously, the red zone has a cluster of behaviors and traits, the green zone similar, and the blue zone similar. And the length of the line, like does your behavior change basically from when you're motivated to when you're stressed? And for some people it does, but interestingly, for some people it doesn't. So as a manager, you might not be able to, for some employees it's really obvious if you can tell if they are stressed or motivated because their behavior changes and they go to more to one of these extremes, or they come more to the hub, the middle point of
Yeah,
the
so
triangle.
cool. Yeah, so cool.
But for some people, the size of the line doesn't actually move that much. So as a leader, you kind of need to know who in your team has a large change in their behavior from when they're motivated and when they're stressed, and who doesn't. And then the people who don't, you kind of need to keep more of an eye on or be more tuned into. And so that was a really interesting learning point. So I love doing these types of sessions, but as I've done more and more work in diversity and especially like neurodiversity, I've come up across a lot of people that are quite anti these tools and these assessments, and they make it seem like they're putting us in boxes, right? And then they're making you think, well, you are an extrovert, therefore you can never be introverted, and it drives this kind of box boundaried thinking. So I was just interested to understand your perspective on that, if you've
Oh,
come up come up
yeah.
against that, or
Well,
do
that's
you,
so funny. Yeah, yeah, that
yeah,
is funny because so in that training, that the hospital training, there was one person who was very vocal and like did not like being boxed.
yes,
And what's funny is that a lot of what the coach was later, I was talking to one of the coaches who gave that assessment, and she was saying, well, what I was really trying to tell them was it wasn't a boxing. It was about flexibility and flexing. And these are your innate strengths. That doesn't mean you can't be anything else. It just means what you go to that you're like your default.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And so that was so interesting too. And listen, like I do find that with every assessment, there's going to be like uh, at least one person who finds fault with it. You know, I always am tickled by the reaction that people have to when I say about Myers-Briggs because you know, a lot of even like one of my like favorite not favorite coaches, but one of my coaches who does this super cool assessment on our platform. He's like, "Oh, Myers-Briggs is not scientifically sound, blah 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 blah," blah. And he hates it. But I was like, for me, it was helpful, And I think that I do think it's a little bit of a vulnerability thing for some people. They just don't like being told anything.
yeah.
Maybe they feel vulnerable. I don't
I
know.
I agree with you. It's I think they're useful to serve a purpose, to realize things, and I certainly have taken benefit from. I've never done the disc training, the blue,
Oh,
green,
people love
yellow.
disc.
I've
Yeah.
never I've never done disc. I've done an older one, Belbin or something.
Mm.
I did that as a student, so they did that for us to help construct our design projects, our design teams for our final year
Oh,
project. They
cool.
got they got us to do an assessments, and then they created diverse teams based on how people had scored across, whatever the
That's
framework is
cool.
that is. I can't remember the framework. Um, and then I've seen people talk more and more recently about Clifton strengths,
That's a cool one.
all the top 10 descriptors, which I think you can do for free on one of their websites, and you get your top three words, and you have to pay for more analysis and deeper dives. Um, yeah, I think they're fun.
Yeah.
But I know that there are some people that are quite, ugh, don't like what they show, and that can sort of sway you from even doing them if you're a small team.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but
it's funny. I wish I knew psychologically why that is. I don't really know. My assumption is just that it maybe it doesn't give you the choice that you think
yeah,
that you have in life. But I think the real point is like it's not it's really just about, being successful in life and at work, is really just about deciding what you're solving for
yeah.
and having the ability to like have that perspective. So a lot of people are just very reactionary, right? So if you're able to get out of that reactionary state, you're operating at a much better level to determine the future of your life.
So actually, I remember it was that triangle tool. I remember in real time applying the learning from it when I was then in a subsequent project for the Metropolitan Police in London. I was
Mm.
working on like an energy management system tool, and I was working with a contractor, and we just weren't quite connecting with one another. There was sort of tension there. And it was also I was newish to the project. So with this individual, I was still in that forming, storming phase of, relationship development. And then I thought, I remember a particular phone call where it got a bit spiky, in terms of the exchange. And then I realized, Mark, you're heading into the red zone. you are becoming more fiery, more like aggressive, more, because you're entering the stressed state of your triangle. Try and be more in the hub. Pull on your green, pull on your blue kind of side, your empathy, your listening, your being grounded. And I just took a breath, took a moment, realized that I was responding physiologically to this, and adjusted, and I was
Yeah,
able to we were able to unlock,
that's
and so I,
beautiful.
I
Yeah.
think they're really, I think if as long as they're contained as like use, or maybe that's a useful example, like useful use case of the benefits of doing them,
Yeah.
then they're not things that are going to like transform our life, and like, I mean, for some they might, but I think we can expect too much of them sometimes, and
Mhm.
um
Yeah, not
yeah,
everyone's gonna have an epiphany, 100%. But
yeah,
I think, in this presentation I gave, I was saying like, I think even saying to somebody, can we start again?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
just gives everyone the ability to like, okay, refresh. That's not the way I meant to do it,
yeah,
or you can also start by saying, listen, like, I know we both want to get to this result of X. Like, let's, I'm trying to get there with you. I just, maybe I'm doing it the wrong way, or,
yeah,
whatever. Just
yeah.
explaining what's in your brain as opposed to like trying to give someone the perfect way of saying it, it's more like the process than the result.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I think what you're doing is great, and I think if you can make coaching more accessible to more people at an affordable price
Yeah.
point, that also works for the coaching community who are
Right.
being able to you know work to the fees that they want to have. I think you could be onto something, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm so excited about this. And like, it's become for me, like, it's almost a bit of a joke, but it's a little more like having a child. Like,
Yeah.
I'm doing the best I can to help it grow and get better. And it's a really fun problem always, because there's always some problem. Like, once I find some solution or something that's working, then there's like the next thing that you had to, but because I'm like so connected to the North Star of the company, right? Which is like making it easier for people to kind of like be great, making it easier for them to have a great job. Like I like love and I'm obsessed with that idea that it's just so easy to work on this. Like
So
I mean,
where
I'm not, yeah, I don't go crazy, but I mean, I love it. Like every
Yeah,
day,
you're
I just
not.
like,
I
I'm so
can I
happy.
can feel it. I
Yeah.
can sense it from you. It's amazing. It's beautiful to see. Like it emanates from you, the energy, the positivity that you like it's coming from your heart. And you've got that alignment then between your head, heart, and core, your gut. You're doing something that adds good into the world, and it makes you then feel good about it. And you get that positive feedback loop when then the coaches and the coachees, the beneficiaries of it, and it's just a beautiful value creation where everyone's
Yeah.
benefiting. Where
Exactly. And that's to me like also like that's such a like a life force for me, which
Yeah,
is like, the threading of the needle.
yeah,
It makes
right,
me so happy. And so like one of the things I always say about Terawatt is like all our three stakeholders, coaches, employers, and employees are all treated the same way. Like they're all treated with respect. No one's disadvantaged. We have one website. What I mean? We're super transparent about the costs and everything. And my belief is like if you have a company like that and you treat people well and you're transparent and you do all the things that you know in your heart you should do, I do also believe you can have a great company.
so where are you currently mainly operating? Is it a specific area in the US? Is it national? Is there ambitions to go international? Like what's the
Yeah.
current state and future state?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have coaches all over.
Okay.
So we have coaches in UK, in Europe, South America, Canada. We must have someone in Mexico, but I can't think right now, but we must. I mean, definitely a lot of North America. But because I work from home, it's virtual. The coaches do a lot of their coaching through Zoom. What I always say to people, and so our customers primarily are in the States.
Okay.
There's zero reason we couldn't work with somebody in another country. At one point I was speaking to somebody in Israel and then it just got too hard with the trying to
Yeah.
get people there during the war. But that would be an easy one. And what I always say to people, the employers is, listen, like these coaches are capitalists. if you want to pay them their day rate to go to your city, and pay for their airfare and pay for their
Yep.
hotel, they'll do it in a heartbeat.
Yep.
That's not a problem, as long as you schedule enough time. But
Yeah.
my pitch is like virtual just because it's more affordable.
Yeah.
You save money. But like that one thing we did with that hospital, that was in person.
Yeah.
And so I went and two other coaches, we flew up to that town and we're there for the day. But again, it says a little different cost. But
Yeah.
some people, like the hospital, really liked it because they wanted, it makes kind of sense for them, right? Because they wanted people to like really be focused, not be distracted, put their phones away, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's
Different energy. It's a
yeah,
different outcome that them because it what a session like that, an offsite or an onsite, is like you're filling time maybe within an offsite that they already have planned, so they can bring you in for an interactive session that then maybe kicks off some subsequent virtual coaching that
right.
then becomes part of your bespoke solution for them that kicks off the 6 month,
Exactly. Yeah, a
program.
great point. Exactly. And I think, one of the things that I like about the long-term coaching is that, I also spend a lot of time researching adult pedagogy, like how adults learn and how adults also learn online. And it turns out really interestingly, the people who understand that the best are community colleges in America.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
they're also, by the way, measured on metrics,
yeah.
graduation rate, course completion rate, all this stuff. So I went to this one conference and it was fascinating. And but so one of the things that adults need when they learn is like they need reflection, they need to socialize a little bit.
Yeah,
Even like presenting helps them
yeah,
learn. Um, you know, uh, any kind of discussion, but like it's so interesting, like, and it's time. So it's not like, and that's why the conference thing kind of drives me crazy because it's not like you're listening to somebody and then like it in your heart, 2 days later, and you'll use it every day. It's like you have to practice it, you have to have feedback,
have to
you
apply
know.
it. Yeah,
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 and like it's not like a rote memorization the way when we were like 5 and we were learning, what
yeah,
colors mean or how to read or something.
yeah,
But it's like there's much more sort of integration that goes into learning for adults. And so that's why I really like sort of like chunks of hours over 6 months or a year or whatever, because then you can kind of start to integrate it. It starts to make sense. Make connections in your brain, and so everything's different strokes for different folks, right? Because I mean, everything's going to be a little bit different. There'll be benefits and pros
You're
and
making
cons.
me think about my book came out last year called The Safe Leader, and on the back of it, we've built a training course that's 2 days long that we've now had certified
Mm,
for accreditation. And it's, one module per letter: share, act, feel, empower. It's essentially a mix of storytelling practice alongside safety concepts and what have you. And we've kind of stuffed it all into 2 days. And maybe there'd be a benefit in stretching it out. With our pilot
yeah.
cohort, we did stretch it out over 4 months. I think we did sort of 6 weeks in between each module, which was quite long actually in
Yeah.
between them.
Well,
But
what if you did, what you could do, a lot of these coaches seem to do is, I always think, by the way, like the smartest thing you can do as a coach or any kind of solopreneur is have some kind of like independent learning that someone can do, like a book, like you said, or like a video
yeah,
version. So you could almost have a thing where maybe like you do the training, then like a week later, there's like a mini module where you write something down, or you
yeah,
present it, or you get together with a group to discuss it, and you don't even have to be involved, right? But
yeah, synchronous learning. You sort of send them
yeah,
send
yeah.
them
Or
a
even it's like, hey, whichever 4 people can meet at 8 p.m. on Monday night,
yeah,
we'll have the study group, and then that will count for your credits and XYZ, that kind of thing. And that way it makes your life a little bit easier and you don't have to always be on.
yeah,
But I do think that like there's so much to that, or it could be like before we meet, on Friday, watch this hour-long video and we're going to discuss it. And then again, like that also, you know what you're going to say. You've probably said it 100 times. Like you can just record it.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, I like it. I like it. Certainly, when I've done self-investment in coaches, like where I've been coached for different, either for sales or for like leadership development or for public speaking. I've had a public speaking coach, and I always, because there's such big investments as well, I always want to make sure I'm showing up as the good student. So they do similar things. They'll set me tasks to do. They've maybe got an online learning platform where they've recorded content for people that just want to access online content rather than do the big investment in one-to-one time, but I'll still have that as a support content that I can then do ahead of a one-on-one together. So maybe just, yeah, building that out a bit deeper is what's next.
Or even like a workbook is cool too. I mean, there's so much cool stuff, or like prompts, a book of prompts, or
Yeah.
I just think that like I always really admire coaches when they come up with these because it's a really good way to like scale your business and not be always having to be in person.
Well, time is your most valuable
Right.
commodity, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's your
And that's the issue for
yeah.
scaling,
Yeah.
100%. And that's the scaling thing is like, how do you make it so that people still get access to you and but the cost of your time is being taken into account.
Yeah, 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 totally. Love it. Okay,
Yeah.
quick fire
Okay.
question. What's the best leadership advice you've ever received?
Oh, I think really it's find the North Star and stick to it. And it just makes everything so much easier.
What's one moment you're especially proud of in building Terawatt?
Uh, I think probably like the first time someone paid me.
Absolutely. What's one skill every founder should develop?
Good one. Probably figuring out sales.
Coffee or tea?
T.
What's your go-to way to reset or recharge?
Ooh, good question. I have so many. I'm very, I walk my dog a lot.
Dog walk.
Um, I love a good series on Netflix.
Yeah, me too.
Mm,
Me too.
I play tennis. I play tennis matches.
Okay, so nice. You've got your well-being wheel.
Yeah, yeah. Don't worry about me on that one. Yeah, that's well elaborated. Yeah.
Who's someone you admire for how they lead through complexity?
Ooh, gosh. Um, oh, I'll tell you. It's an American politician. Her name is Alexandria
Oh
Ocasio-Cortez.
yeah. Yeah.
And you can disagree or agree with her politics, but man, is she able to take complicated things and turn it into a very simple, like binary?
Yeah.
It is so impressive.
Yeah.
And like she'll say, like she's one time said something like, no one should be too poor to live. And I was like, who can disagree with that? That is so brilliant. And I think even the Pope said something similar to that. And the Pope is a good one too. I think that like people they're able to really distill things into like almost like
Yeah.
moral decisions is really
Unarguable.
helpful
Yeah.
because you stop leading with the ego or with like some assumption of what things are going to cost or whatever. It's more about why are we doing, like why are we doing this?
Hmm. Love it.
Yeah.
What's a book or what's a book or resource you recommend often?
Okay, yes, that's such a good one. It's called Turn the Ship Around. Have you heard of this book?
No, I'm guessing there's a copy
Yeah, it's
nearby.
right there. I
Have you
often
not read
bring
it
it over
yourself?
to people. It's so good. And let me tell you about it. It's written by a retired U.S. captain, naval captain of a nuclear submarine.
Wow.
And basically, he was like, this system is not working. And one of the things that was going on in the nuclear submarine is that they're like, highly, what's the word, explosive, right? Potentially explosive. So everything needs to be controlled really well. And so what was happening is people were going up to him and saying things like, can I use this screw to replace that? Like just this very minute things he was like the bottleneck for.
Yeah.
And he was like, this is absurd. Like, I can't, I don't know. I can't do this. This can't keep going on. And at the time, also, they had like terrible morale. No one wanted to be on the ship. Like, they were failing all their like score like tests and blah, blah, blah. And so he changed it so that instead of like being like top down, it was bottom up.
Right.
And so and whatever your job was, you were the expert, and basically what you were meant to do then is pitch your higher up and say, "Hey, we have a problem with the screw came loose. I intend to replace this screw with this screw because these reasons, blah blah blah." And then the senior person would say yes, or they would ask more questions, or they would maybe say go back to the drawing board. But there wasn't this sense of like, I don't know, you know, and then if you got it wrong as the junior person, you'd be like, well, he told me to do it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
And so apparently that was made this massive change on the ship. It's an incredible book.
I
I
love
read it
that.
all the time. Yeah.
I love it. What's something you've changed your mind about in recent years?
Oh, I'm a very decisive person. I'm gonna have to think about that one. What have I changed my mind about? I mean, well, one thing I'd say with this business, at least, is I just do what I think is the right thing. I just don't accept boilerplate or the conventional wisdom. And it actually has made this business be better.
Amazing.
And I find that like that's been something that it's I didn't necessarily understand, I think, when I started this, that like it turns out that like the DNA of the business can really be everywhere.
Yeah.
And if you do that, then like you said, you're really aligned. And also it's just I feel lighter. Like I don't have like the secret thing that I'm worried that someone's gonna ask about or this horrible thing we once did. Like
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
don't have any of that.
What's the most powerful feedback you've received from a client?
Um, Powerful feedback. I don't know. I just like it when people tell me their preferences because I always realize like I am just not the average person. Like the way my brain works is just not what most people think. And so like the other day I was talking to a client and like, oh, so I presented her with 21 options and I was like, that's probably too many.
Yeah.
But I was like, but humans like to choose, and I'll get the feedback. And she said, Francie, yeah. And she didn't say anything, but then I said, was 21 too many? And she said, yes. She said, I've gotten to the stage in my life, I just want like three, like I don't, and so that's actually operationally harder for us.
Right, right, right.
And so now I'm thinking about, that would probably be a great thing for AI to do. But I think that that's something that I need to work on, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
what do we do to make it easier on the decider who's already probably having a million decisions to make? And I think, and that's like going to be one of these things. Again, it's like the plateaus of the business. Like that's a huge step if we can figure out a really smart way
Yeah.
to make. Because what I'm afraid of is reducing the size and not making someone delighted.
Yeah, maybe just bundle into menus of options that are clustered into like, service packs or something. And
Yeah.
then you have the high point, the low point, and people always choose the middle priced one and put all the commonly chosen options clustered into that middle option. And then you've got a scalable solution, maybe.
Yeah, I know. It's a hard it's really actually harder than it sounds to do. And but
Yeah.
I love that like I love the sort of elegance of solutions. So like the
But
idea
you're
that
right.
like that could be our goal was
You're
great.
right. Using an AI tool to help you like compartmentalize and segment and cluster, it's a
But if you
really
think
good use.
about like but think about like Airbnb, right? And like you're looking at a map and they're like, you're like trying to go near a stadium or something. Okay, you're like there are 40 houses. And like these are the different prices. This is my budget. This is what I want to spend. Um, and so for that, at least you can kind of like, you look at like distance maybe
Yeah.
and price, and like maybe that's a way you could sort of rank them. But with you have everyone has the same price. If there's a budget, I reached out to everyone with, and they have like all these different, things they're offering. Yeah, I mean, it's just so interesting. It's like maybe it's almost like someone said to me, well, maybe what you can do is you can say to them, how many do you want to see? Because there might be like a maximizer out there who wants to see 21. And there might be someone saying, I just want to see three. And so maybe that's also part of like the human choice too. Or,
Yeah.
so it's like something I'm like really struggling with. And, it was really valuable feedback. And also, by the way, what I learned with that one is sometimes you just really need to ask the question
Yeah.
and not assume someone's going to tell you what they think, just
Very true.
straight up. Yeah.
Finally, what advice would you give to your younger self at the start of your entrepreneurial journey?
Okay, this is something I keep thinking when you're speaking, and I really wish I knew this when I was younger. Um, we know you're saying your heart and your head and your gut are aligned or your
Yeah.
core. I think that like that is 100% true, right? When it's all working. But there's like a false flag when you don't know something and it seems scary.
Yeah.
That also makes you uncomfortable, and that is not the same thing as your gut telling you it's wrong.
Yeah, that's true. That's
And
true.
that I have gotten caught up in many times in my life.
Right.
And so, like, looking back, I wish that things I didn't know about, I was more curious about and just like investigated them more.
Push through. Push through
Then,
the discomfort.
yeah, or just like, hey, listen, maybe it's just a conversation, or it doesn't mean that like you just don't do something, which I
Yes.
think there's a little bit of that where I was like, oh, I don't want to, like, I was thinking like good advice also is like always go to the interview. Like if someone wants to interview for your job, they're seeing something that maybe you don't see, and it's worth it just to go and just see.
Yeah.
It doesn't take, what is that, an hour of your life? And I think that like that's something I wish I had known, because there were many times I can look back where I was thinking, oh, that's not for me, or like that thing I was saying about with the selling at a gallery.
Yeah.
But actually turns out that's like a strength I have. I just didn't know it.
Yeah. Well, as long as you discover it eventually, you can still visit that and apply it.
Exactly.
I have really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah,
Thank
so nice, Mark.
you
Thank you for having
so
me.
much.
What a
If,
pleasure.
if people want to get in touch with you, find out more about Terawatt, about your work, how should they do that?
Well, the best place is our website. So terawatt.co, C-O, no M. Our like most active social media is LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm relatively active there, and I love to do podcasts. I love chatting with people.
Amazing.
And yeah, those are probably the best places. Thank you for asking.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Francie. It's been great. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Have a good day. You have been listening to the Safe Leader podcast, uncovering the diversity story behind leading figures championing change to make our world a better place. If you have enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to the Safe Leader podcast on your podcast platform of choice and get notified when a new episode goes live. Did you know that we also offer a full transcript on each of our podcast episodes? Check out my website, McBride-Wright.com. Here, you can also explore the training, coaching, and keynote speaking services I offer. And whilst you're there, why not join the Safe Leader community by subscribing to the Safe Leader Insights mailing list? Thank you for listening, and please come back and join us on a future episode.